Hi guys, so recently I've been reading up about the Touhou Project, a series of vertical shmups coming out of Japan over the past 25 years. The first games came out on the NEC PC98 computers in the late 90s, with the series subsequently moving to Windows. I play a lot of games on my JVC monitor here, using an old PC that's running Batocera, a Linux-based operating system for running various emulators. What is nice about it is that all the emulators are pre-installed and ready to go. I realised that Batocera had a PC98 emulator, so I thought I'd try firing up the first 5 Touhou Project games and see what they were like. When I did this, I realised I had a couple of issues that weren't obvious fixes, so I thought I'd share what I found. So here we've got Batocera, so if we select the emulator, and we're going to load up the second Touhou Project game, let this fire up. And so the two issues that I'll show you here is firstly the arcade joystick not working. So I've got a keyboard and a joystick connected here, so I can use the keyboard to control the game. There we go, so the game's loading up now. I'll turn the speakers on so we can hear the music. Okay, firstly, I can move the joystick and we're not going up and down, whereas if I move up and down on the keyboard here, we can see the selector going. And then if we hit start to start the game, so the game will fire up. Okay, so we see that fire rate's quite fast, we can move quite quickly. As soon as enemies come on screen, it starts to lag, so performance is just got very slow. Music's still playing fine, but you can see that this is running, I don't know, half the speed it should be. And then when the enemies leave the screen, things speed up again. So initially I thought this was just the emulator performance, but basically I've worked out that this can be resolved. So if we press hotkey plus A in Batocera, you can bring up the emulator menu. In this case, this is a libretro core, so it's the retroarch menu. And so for the controls, initially I went to the controls option here, and you can go to port 1 controls. But unfortunately, there's no options. It's not giving the option here to map the keys on the joystick to anything that the emulator understands. And so that option is actually within options, and we can change both of our fix both of our issues here. So if we scroll down, firstly, the joystick not working is within this joypad, D-pad to mouse, keyboard, joypad mapping. You see by default it's off. We can change this to manual keyboard because we saw the keyboard was working before, and this is basically joy to key. So our keyboard or our arcade stick inputs are now being mapped to the keyboard inputs, and that's actually been managed automatically. But for some reason, by default, the setting is off. So we turn that on. Hopefully that will now fix our joystick issue. The other one is the slow performance. And so because the PC98 computers came out with a variety of different CPUs, you can actually choose different CPUs in the emulator. And so the default for this ROM and emulator was pretty much the original CPU, which came out, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s. And so for playing a game that came out in the late 90s, it's really not up to scratch. So we can change that to a later CPU, which is one of the later Pentiums. There's also this option for clock multiplier, so we can change that. We'll increase that to 16. So if we now exit this option menu, hopefully we've now fixed our performance issues and fixed our joystick issues. So if we now restart the ROM in the emulator, we'll see the game boot up again. There we go. So I've now pressed my arcade stick to skip that menu, so we can see that that's working. And we can see we can now scroll up and down in the menu. So if we now hit start, here we go. Now let's see if we get any of those slowdown issues. Unfortunately, this joystick's set in 4-way configuration at the moment, so I can't move diagonally. But look, we can see that the game now has none of that slowdown that we saw before. So firing rate is pretty much constant. Enemies appearing on screen, we're not getting that significant slowdown that we saw before. Any slowdown I guess we're getting now is probably just due to the emulator, rather than the emulator not being set correctly. So let's just play a little bit of Touhou Project. The music in these games is excellent. Ah. First time I played this, it was slowing down significantly. It was much easier. There we go. So that's the first boss, and the game's running fine. And basically, I'm going to play this a bit more, and hopefully, you guys have found this useful. And I'll catch you soon.